I do want to move on to climate and the environment. I know it's something that you're both passionate about, as are Democratic primary voters, and you have a significant difference of opinion. Mr. Romanoff supports the Green New Deal. Mr. Hickenlooper, you do not support the Green New Deal. Mr. Hickenlooper, you're calling for a slower pace to meet zero emissions and reduced fossil fuel use, and I'm curious whether is it that you don't think that the more aggressive approach is necessary to get the job done, or you don't think that it's possible?
No, I think that I have the same fierce urgency that Andrew has, and I've been working on climate change. Back when I got my master's in environmental science and geology, they called it the greenhouse effect. But the bottom line is we've got to have a concentrated, focused, integrated, comprehensive program to address climate change in the U.S. Senate. It's got to include getting rid of coal-fired electrical plants. It's got to include incentives to accelerate transition to electric vehicles. We've got to capture fugitive emissions like methane, which we did in Colorado. We've got to address and incentivize innovation in agriculture and industry. But we have to remember, it's not going to cost an arm and a leg, and it can go fast. We've got to get to zero carbon emissions by 2050 at the latest. But I think we can get there by 2040, maybe 2045. But we've got to go as quickly as we can and recognize that these innovations are going to create jobs. We're going to create far more jobs than we're going to lose as we transition away from coal and carbon-based energy into wind, solar, and other forms of renewable energy.
Mr. Romanoff, I want to hear from you on climate and the environment as well, but the question is going to come from my colleague, Marshall Zellinger.
Mr. Romanoff, we've watched ash rain down on Commerce City from the Suncor oil refinery. In southwestern Colorado, millions of gallons of toxic waste turned a river yellow. Yet you created a doomsday political ad where a family lived in a bunker, avoiding 127-degree heat and unbearable air quality. Why scare voters with climate Armageddon?
Voters are living in that kind of hell right now. Perhaps not the circumstances portrayed in the ad, but look, if you're living in a community like those you just listed, where your kids can't safely breathe the air or drink the water, or your children are subjected to birth defects because of the kind of runaway oil and gas development that John Hickenlooper presided over, and the deterioration in air quality we've seen all along the Front Range, that ad doesn't seem terribly apocalyptic at all. And it is not so distant. In fact, in many communities, the threat is here, real, and now. The question I think ought to go to John Hickenlooper: why do you continue to take money from the fossil fuel industry, hundreds of thousands throughout your career? Why did you sue communities that tried to restrict fracking and protect their public health? Why did you drink the fracking fluid? And why on earth, at this moment, when we face an existential threat, why would you oppose a bold, ambitious plan like the Green New Deal and join Cory Gardner in opposition to that proposal?
Mr. Hickenlooper, 30 seconds to respond here, please.
So we have to have a fierce urgency to climate change, and we have to recognize that the Republicans are trying to stack the deck against us. They're going to do everything in their power to roll back the EPA regulations, to cut apart our protections for clean air and clean water that have been established over decades. And I worked tirelessly to make sure that we had a public health department, a Department of Public Health and the Environment, that was doing the tests and the measurements and beginning the studies to make sure that every neighborhood, every community got the protections that they deserved. The primary purpose of the federal government and the state government is public safety and good health.